You're entering the MSP Zone, a podcast for the managed services community, covering news, analysis, and interviews from around the globe. Elevate your MSP game by staying in the MSP Zone. And now, your host, Charles Weaver.
All right. Today we've got some news. We've got some news about Datto having a pretty good 2020 year as a public company. And we've also got some analysis from a news article that was published not that long ago that's talking about manual service desk. And I think that there's some implications to managed services that we'll get into, but it's going to be a kind of a hodgepodge of some news review and some analysis. So let's get to the Datto news. Datto announces fourth quarter and 2020 financial results. So again, we've been talking about this for a while now, since Datto's IPO last year, chiefly because this is now going to be one of the kind of more important, I don't want to say that to exclude the other MSP platform companies that are out there, but it's important in one key area because Datto is a public company, and because unlike the other platform companies that sell to MSPs, Datto has financial obligations. They have SEC filing requirements that they have to abide by. And so we're getting very accurate data now that actually speaks directly to the health and welfare of the managed services global community. And so that's why it's interesting, why I am covering it, why you guys should be interested in this, because it is one of the best, if not direct, then certainly the best indirect metrics of the health of the MSP community, right? Because if you look at Datto's results, you're directly, indirectly seeing the results in the health and how the MSPs out there are all doing. That's good. That's really good, kind of a metric or meter of financial tailwinds or headwinds, as it may depend. But I'll just read a little bit about, this is from Business Wire, so this is right from the press release from Datto. And so in addition, as I said, to Datto having its IPO last year, which we've written about and analyzed to some extent on MSP Zone and on MSP Alliance, they had annual recurring revenue growth of $20 million last year, it looks like. So they had a really good fourth quarter, a good total year. The revenue, had some adjustments, I think, from the beginning of the year before they were public until I think they went public somewhere mid-year, if I'm not mistaken. They're reporting over 17,000 MSP partners, and yeah, just a fantastic, strong close to the year with recurring revenue really going up about 18%. So not a bad subscription revenue year-over-year change from the previous year, about an 18% increase. For a company that sells almost exclusively to MSPs, that is not a bad thing, especially during a global pandemic. Again, we've talked about a lot of kind of the dichotomy of different providers at different maturity levels of their managed services growth, having very different outcomes during the pandemic year last year. And I think that, Datto's has kind of been known as a company that sells maybe a little bit more to the smaller MSP. Not a bad thing, just it's what they do. And for them to have a pretty good amount of growth and during a pandemic year is not a bad thing at all for our sector. Not a bad thing at all. and speaks directly to what I have long felt throughout all of last year, is that there is a very tremendously important but untold story of the role the MSPs played globally in the initial rollout of work from home and the ongoing maintenance and securing of remote worker staff everywhere. And I mean literally everywhere. And I think that that's part of what you're seeing in that 18% growth from Datto. So anyway, we'll post a link to it if you want to go take a look at it yourself. You can see all of their financial breakdowns. And they made in this press release, they've also announced some acquisitions. They did one for a security software company, I think, called BitDam, and other product enhancements that are published in the press release. So go take a look at it, make your own decisions. But on to the what I thought was really interesting and caught my eye, an article written by one of our friends, Scott Becker, over at Redmond Channel Partner Magazine, and it's so I'm not in any way besmirching Scott's reporting here. It's just an interesting thing. The title of it is called Gartner: Days of the Manual Service Desk Are Numbered. And it stated just a few weeks ago. Well, it's actually last week, March 11th. So it's only a few days old. And it's referencing a Gartner report about the end of the manual service desk. And this really startled me to some degree, because they're talking about service desk, which they may or may not include as managed services. It's actually in the report, is in the Magic Quadrant for Managed Workplace Services North America. So I think that they are considering this part of managed services, but they're looking at the managed help desk space as still clinging to manual process. And it got me thinking, are there still companies out there still doing manual managed services? Who are they? Are they the enterprise people who would firms that would typically subscribe and fund Gartner type reports, or is this really just this is a dying process, and this is their way of saying, hey, don't do this anymore. We're not going to cover you if you persist on doing this. And I wasn't sure, so I dug further into the article, and there's some good pull-out quotes here that I'll read to you guys just to give you some context. And the findings here are, first of all, dealing undeniably with large enterprise providers. So no surprise there, but companies like Wipro, HCL, TCS, NTT, Unisys, Cognizant, all right, very large multinational type of IT MSPs, among other things. They don't just do managed services, these companies. They do a lot of other things. And so that's one thing that's really curious, that those companies, even as large as they are still holding on to some degree manual process for help desk or service desk. And it goes through and talks about the levels of automation in their service desks. So most of them are saying that they're doing high automation in service desk. TCS reports 70% automation, Wipro 60% automation, Cognizant 47% through self-heal and automation. So there's a little bit of a disparity there. Unisys on the low end says that they're at 10%. That doesn't seem right, but that they're claiming that Unisys is at 10% self-healing. So, you know, I think there is a interesting perspective to this, which is don't necessarily think that just because providers are big, make a lot of money, that they're proficient in managed services. Don't think that they're automated. Don't think that they're efficient and scalable. And that's also to say, don't think that just because you're small that you are not doing things the right way. I have seen a lot of small MSPs who far outperform much larger MSPs in a variety of ways, especially when it comes to efficiency, process, automation, things like that. And the fact that there's an article here, or the fact that Gartner's publishing a note saying, hey, look, you guys better wake up, right? Automation is the key here. And not just in service desk, help desk, but it's also just in general of how you handle your managed services. Automation is the key. And if you don't get on board that, you're going to be definitely in the rear of the column. You're going to be following a lot of other companies who are going to pass you up. And I think that is a very, very profound statement, but also for a lot of you guys out there in the SMB and mid-market level, you got to be paying attention to this, because I don't know how many of you are subscribers to Gartner or the Forrester Wave or some of the other large analyst firms, but if they're saying that about their enterprise customer or enterprise subscribers and providers, then you ought to be thinking about this right now, about where you're at with your managed services practice and how you are using automation, whether you're using automation, I should say, and how quickly you should be getting onto that bandwagon, because I think you should. We've talked about automation in the context of cybersecurity staffing. We've talked about it in terms of being able to stay current with your productivity and scalability, even when hiring new talent is incredibly challenging, has been for many, many years now. I think it's a really interesting article. And it's kind of a shot across the bow, I think, for the rest of us, that, the days of manual service desk, you could easily replace that word and say the days of manual managed services are numbered. I think that that's incredibly true. I think that this has been true for a long time. And it's a question of what technology are you going to implement? What's the process going to look like? How are you going to do it? And how quickly are you going to do it? And the MSPs who will be very well positioned, and by the way, everything I just said applies to you guys out there who are believing, correctly so, that your transformation from MSP to MSSP, quote unquote, is the key to your future. It is. But your key to that MSSP future is also directly tied to automation. It's directly tied to how quickly you can get onto technology that will not replace, but will augment your human talent with force multipliers such as AI, machine learning, and other automation technologies that will allow you to do the things that you are going to be asked to do. And probably, quite frankly, things that you are being asked to do right now, today, but are having to rely on highly manual steps to do it. So I'll leave a link into today's program notes to this Redmond Channel Partner Magazine article. It's a good one. Scott Becker generally does really good work on managed services and has for many years. So give it a read, take a look at it, and let us know what you think. But all in all, I think the recap for today is that, we've got some really good market data from Datto saying that 2020 ended up a really good year. We're all projecting and thinking, and it sounds like from MSPs we're talking to all the time that the first quarter of 2021 has been incredibly busy for MSPs all over. So that's another good bit of anecdotal evidence for all of you out there wondering, hey, how are we doing this year? Is it good? Is it bad? It's doing pretty well, and we're seeing a good continuation to what we've seen since third quarter, fourth quarter of last year. Well, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or thoughts, if you want to be on next MSP Zone broadcast and lend your voice and bring your perspective, we'd love to have you. Shoot us an email, leave us a comment, and until next time, this is Charles Weaver with the MSP Zone.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you will get notified when future episodes are released. We will see you next time in the MSP Zone.